What is up, gamers? I'm the Lights. Season of the Deep is here. It's hype. There's fishing, a big sea monster, old reckoning guns, taken versions of old reckoning guns that look freaking killer, and we're going to talk about those today. So, in Season of the Deep, there are 12 new seasonal weapons, 6 old reckoning weapons, which have been reprised, and then 6 weapons that are taken versions of the old reckoning weapons in different archetypes or elements or both. And you know what? I'm going to keep it real. From a meta perspective, these guns are not very good. Overall, this is one of the weaker seasonal weapon sets I've seen in terms of meta strength, but there's far from nothing of merit here, so let's get into the perks of these guns. The taken versions that we're going to be talking about today get the Unsated Hunger origin trait, which gives increased handling, reload speed, and stability when none of your abilities are fully charged. The taken versions of the weapons are craftable, so keep an eye out for those red borders. The reckoning weapons are not craftable. So starting us off here is our first ever Strand Pulse Rifle, the 540 RPM rapid fire frame different times. These rapid fire frame pulse rifles have very low base stats typically. This one's no exception. So I tend to look for perks that use a lot of their power budget to boost stats. To that end, for PvE, the go-to perk is usually Frenzy for 100 reload and 100 handling, in addition to 15% damage with good uptime. If you've watched any of my content previously, you've heard me praise Frenzy numerous times, and well, it's not here. It's not on this gun, unfortunately. It happens. It's not a deal breaker. What else we got for PvE? Well, in the first column, the real lookers for PvE are Stats for All, and I guess Subsistence and Outlaw. Those are fine too. Stats for All I'm favoring here because of its ease of activation and other benefits you get outside of just reload speed. In the second column, to pair with Stats for All, we have a few decent options. We have Hatchling, which could give you some Strand subclass synergy. The threadlings that are produced by Hatchling can refill your gun with Subsistence. If you went that route, they can help you activate Stats for All, so that's nice. We've also got Golden Tricorn, which doesn't have the same level of potency on Strand and Stasis weapons as it does on others, because Stasis and Strand are more focused on crowd control and therefore have less lethal abilities coming from the kit on average. You can definitely make it work though, and it's still useful even at just ×1. Those are my two favorites for this gun, and from there on for PvE, we have a couple perks that are just kind of fine. We have Multi-Kill Clip, Focused Fury, Adrenaline Junkie, and Collective Action. Other than that, for PvP on this gun, Headseeker is a big standout. After the buffs, that's here in the fourth column. Incredible perk on pulse rifles in PvP. You'll definitely want to go for that, paired with Heating Up or Moving Target in the first column. Or Offhand Strike for farming meme clips and upvotes on Reddit, if that's more your thing. There's also Collective Action again for PvE for some Stasis Titan cheese if you really want to let everybody know that you're not fun at parties. I'd recommend going for Arrowhead Break for your barrel in PvE and PvP to help the recoil direction out because it needs it. Otherwise, just try to avoid barrels that give stat penalties, as these 540s need all the help they can get, as I said. Or your magazine range boosts for PvP from stuff like ricochet rounds, and then reload speed or mag size boosts from flared mag weld or anything like that is going to be your best bet for PvE. This gun is definitely not offensively bad or anything, but I'm far from inspired or impressed by it, and I'd say you absolutely can pass on it as just another primary if it weren't for the fact that it is the only Strand pulse rifle in the game currently, and unraveling rounds go pretty hard, so like if you just want it to kind of check that box, then there you go. Staying on Strand here for our next weapon, Until Its Return is a 140 RPM rapid fire frame Strand shotgun. The rapid fire frame shotguns do pretty solid DPS in PvE and aren't very favorable in PvP compared to other shotgun archetypes like precision frames. That being the case, we'll be kitting this thing out for PvE DPS, and there are actually some compelling roles to support that use case here. The two big ones to look at are Cascade Point and Trench Barrel, which are two perks that I've had my eye on for special weapons for a while. We don't quite have the conditions for these perks to shine on a gun like this just yet, but their potential is considerable. You can pair either of those two with perks like Overflow or Auto-Loading Holster from the first column, which both work quite well. And then a magazine boosting perk like Extended, Tactical Mag, or Appended Mag. And, this is a rare shotgun that doesn't get 1-2 punch, and the perk options for PvP, if you did want to go that route, are pretty awful. So yeah, it's basically just Cascade Point or Trench Barrel. Both fine options, but yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Go for range or handling from your barrel and masterwork, and this thing should be fine. Quite replaceable, but fine. Last season, we got a new 140 RPM rapid fire frame stasis sniper rifle, the Irukanji, which was a world drop. It got some pretty good rolls. 4 times the charm and firing line being one that Banshee sold right before the new raid, and I know everybody on my raid team picked that thing up just in case. 140 RPM snipers have even had a lot of buffs since then, with their recoil reduced, their reserves increased, and a 10% damage buff since then. And now here we are, this season, with a new weapon of the same element and archetype as Irukanji. 140 RPM rapid fire frame stasis sniper, a distant pull. On this gun, for your barrel perk, I'd recommend going for Arrowhead Break to help with the 58 base recoil direction, because these 140s still are a little tough to tame, though there are really no wrong answers here. You can kind of go for whatever. For mag perks, go for accurized rounds in PvP, or a pure mag perk like Appended, Extended, or Tactical Mag for PvE. In the first column, Overflow and Triple Tap are both solid PvE options. Keep Away and Moving Target, both going to be quite good in PvP. The fourth column, though, things get a little bit rough, with Explosive Payload and Focused Fury really being the only options for PvE. 2 perks that are no doubt inferior to other top-tier sniper rifle perks like Firing Line or Vorpal Weapon. For PvP, there are no snapshot sights anywhere in sight on this gun, which I know is a deal breaker for some people, but we do have opening shot in the second column, which is a top tier perk on sniper rifles for PvP, and what I'd recommend you go for. There's also a new perk in the second column called Discord, which I've gone over before in some other videos, but you should know it's got quite a lot of potential on PvP sniper rifles. You can round out your distant pull with your masterwork of choice, mine being handling. And if you don't get the pattern or get a good roll of it, you'll be all right. I brought up all the stuff about Irukanji at the beginning of this little segment because it's just better in every way. So if you have one of those, you can still get them from world drops even now. If you get one of those, this gun becomes quite redundant. Rapacious Appetite is up next, which is a stasis 750 RPM aggressive frame SMG. Stasis SMGs have become a bit of a competitive space lately, with the other options being Forensic Nightmare from Throne World, Blood Feud from back in Season of Plunder, and Prolonged Engagement, which can be focused from Zavala. All 3 of those SMGs have straight-up superior perk pools to Rapacious Appetite, in my opinion. I guess arguably, aside from Forensic Nightmare, that perk pool's a little bit. Whether or not you are able to obtain those guns at the moment, though, is a bit of a different story. Prolonged Engagement is a gun that everyone definitely can go get, but has a bajillion perk options, which makes it quite a task to farm out a good one. Back to Rapacious Appetite, we do have Frenzy here on this one, automatically making this gun usable if you get a roll with Frenzy. Or there is Headstone in the 4th column as well, if you want to go that route. There's kind of nothing good in the 1st column, to be honest. Frenzy can carry a gun on its own, so that's why I hesitate on the Headstone call a little bit. I guess there's Perpetual Motion, not the strongest effect on Perpetual Motion, but it is, of course, very easy to activate. At the end of the day, with this gun, Blood Feud is better. A decently rolled Prolonged Engagement is also better. If you don't have either of those and you really want a stasis submachine gun, I mean, here it is. Otherwise, don't bother. Targeted Redaction, the taken version of the immortalized Spare Rations hand cannon. This one's going to be a Void 120 RPM aggressive frame hand cannon. Unlike some of the other guns we talked about, Void hand cannons is a wide open space with next to no competition. The only currently obtainable options are going to be Bottom Dollar, which is focusable from Gambit. There's also Exalted Truth from Trials, so nothing too easy to get there, and definitely nothing craftable. I do quite like my Frenzy roll of Exalted Truth, and I also have a PvE roll of Palindrome that I kept around, but you may not. In fact, I'd wager most people don't have any Void hand cannons in their vault. To make matters worse, this season we have Void Surge and Unstoppable hand cannon, so now's the time that you're really going to want to have one. Targeted Redaction can most definitely be that for you. The 120 RPM archetype would be my last choice for PvE for sure, but I am happy to report that targeted redaction does get Frenzy, so you can do much worse than a Frenzy hand cannon. If you want this thing for PvE, I would really try to get Frenzy too, because these 120s have terrible base stats. Frenzy's going to help out with that a ton. If you can't get one with Frenzy though, something like Outlaw in the first column paired with Focused Fury, Explosive Payload, or Destabilizing Rounds, maybe even Collective Action could have some play. And speaking of Collective Action, this is the gun that started the Stasis Titan Crucible nonsense 2-tapping everybody. So if you want one for PvP, Collective Action all the way, and you are just good to go terrorize people. If you still want it for PvP, just as a craftable 120 for your energy slot, and you don't want to commit crimes against humanity with Collective Action, I think it's actually pretty darn solid for that. The perk combination I'm looking at here is Keep Away with, wait for it, Well-Rounded. Well-Rounded, I and the community have largely ignored for its lackluster uptime, but it's 10 range and 10 handling per stack, which range and handling probably the best stats you can get on most guns for PvP, and it lasts 15 seconds, which is, a lot longer than most timer-based perks. So pair that with Keep Away, which is 10 range, accuracy cone help, and 30 reload speed, and you're getting a ton of stat help to help this thing feel really crispy. With that roll, I'd go for a range masterwork, accurized rounds, and I'd actually recommend Fluted Barrel here, since you can get as much as 30 free range out of this perk combination, which caps out your range and then allows you to go for Fluted Barrel for the extra handling and stability. Overall, it's not bad in PvP. And for PvE, grab it if you need it, and then wait for something better to roll around. Or go get Exalted Truth. Thin Precipice is a new addition to the long list of meme swords that sound fun in theory, but are never getting equipped by anyone, because at the end of the day, they are not an Eager Edge sword, they are not the Lament, and they are not Falling Guillotine. This is a Strand Vortex frame sword that gets Hatchling or Chain Reaction in the 4th column. So go have fun with that for a little bit, and then delete it, because no roll of this thing is worth the vault space. It does look cool, so maybe keep it for a cool picture or something if you want. But yeah, that's it. That's going to wrap it up for the Taken weapons. I'll have a video out on the Reckoning weapons in a couple days, and that is a bit better weapon set, I'd say, so make sure you subscribe and don't miss that. Meanwhile, though, let me know in the comments which of your favorite guns I said were terrible and what rolls I'm sleeping on, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Deuces.